have Ashton here, so he's the center of attention tonight. He's our special guest, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and my community's heart for coming through and sharing your wisdom, sharing your story, and being as authentic as you are. I'm a huge fan. I've been following you for a long time, man, and I remember when you were on Clubhouse, and when you first started talking about this stuff, and I'm
Well, you
super
don't need
proud
to.
of
You don't need
how
to praise me
far
too
how
hard, brother.
far
I
you
appreciate
came.
you, man. Let's talk about what you guys want to talk about tonight. Because the
All
truth
right.
is, I'm just one of you guys, and I came up in the game, so to speak, because of you guys, and many of you guys here today as well who are up here. So thank you very much, because you guys gave me platforms to say the message, to do this investigation. So what I was hoping tonight is that we would get to kind of ask and answer questions that you guys are wondering about, people that have been watching the investigation, inside stuff you might want to know, or just questions in general.
Yeah, I've got a list of questions. I'm sure everybody else on stage does too, but let me
And
just
hi,
start
Maze. Hi,
with
Dustin. Hi, everybody. Hey, Jennifer.
Hi,
What up, buddy?
Ashton.
So let's
Hey,
just start
Ashton.
with what initially drew you to investigate the disappearance of MH370, and what specific evidence convinced you that advanced technology like orbs might be involved?
Well, I guess the first thing is that I just try to keep an open mind, and for me, it was when I opened my mind to the idea that there could be something going on with this UFO topic, like, 7 or 8 years ago. That's when I decided I was going to keep an open mind about what it might be and what it might look like, what aliens might look like, what the technology might look like. Because again, this is something that we theoretically, publicly don't have. And with the MH370 videos, I mean, the thing that really drew me to them is that whether they were fake or not, they were representing real leaked military footage from the way that they were recorded. That's how they were represented. And, one of the things I say now is that, I was just saying that I had thought the one video was satellite video for the whole time. And the reason why this is important to point out my own lack of understanding is that the reason why we can't even now understand those videos to be real, even though they're 11 years later, is because we have no frame of reference. For the same reason why when a lot of people look at that now Gorgon stare video, the whammy video, they wonder if they're looking up or down. Can you imagine looking at a picture and wonder if you're looking up or down? Like, that's how little, frame of reference we have for what we're looking at there. And this is the same for that video. It's called Satellite Video, Airliner, and UFOs. In the bottom left corner, it says NROL 22, and then there's some coordinates. So pretty much anybody that looked at that would think it must be some kind of satellite video. This tells us two things. One, I mean, it goes to show that the person that uploaded that didn't even know what it was. They didn't know that was a drone video of something looking down. They probably had little to no information about that, what it was, other than somebody told them it was legit. And then they posted it and they said, well, it says NROL 22 in the bottom left corner. It looks like it's from above. So I guess it's a satellite video. Turns out it's a drone flying above this plane that's flying very low above the ocean. And it's got two pods, cameras, on one under each wing, looking down, producing this footage. And it's relaying to NROL 22, because NROL 2 is something called an SDS satellite, a relay satellite. And so somebody was watching that operation in real time, and somebody happened upon that footage and found it. So to answer your question, when that story started to make sense from looking at the evidence, and this is about, September, I want to say, that's when I realized, holy crap, this is real. I mean, what are the odds that somebody would make a prank hoax video that tells this rich story of what happened to the plane? So that's how I get involved in it. And then truth is, absolute truth, there was still some pretty decent chance I thought that the videos could be fake for months. It wasn't until about March of last year that I was 100% sure the videos couldn't be fake. They had to be real at that point.
So,
Took quite a lot.
so just to be clear, you do think that this is Gorgon stare whammy footage that we're looking at?
I'm so convinced that I've been wondering how hard all in do I want to go? And I've been thinking how could it backfire on me if I do go all in on it? because it seems so obvious now in retrospect. It's like when you get that moment of just clarity where you're like, holy crap, it was Gorgon Stare the whole time. I always knew it. Like I see Jennifer, I'll let you answer it, say a thing in a second. I just want to say one thing is that how this worked out was that I found out it was whammy footage from a comment in YouTube like 8 months ago. And I went, holy crap, whammy, what's that? And I found out that's this low frame rate, not video, whammy, wide area motion imagery. And I learned about that. I went, oh boy, that's even crazier to fake. And so then I learned about, I was looking up these like contracts in DARPA, and I find the Argus IR. And I'm like, whoa, this looks just like what we would need to produce this whammy. And so I was putting that together. And then this was just a couple of weeks ago that I just did like AI kind of research, because I've been doing more and more of that, and looked up every whammy capability. And right away, the AI narrowed it down without very many prompts to just 3 options: Angel Fire, which is a very old, like early 2000s, mid 2000s system, Gorgon Stare, and Argus. And then the big break was I was trying to figure out which of the 2 it could be. Like I wanted some evidence, and I found out they were integrated together. The same thing. They're the same thing. And so, then you look at it, and you can find the analysis that we've done of the actual technical analysis of the video of the whammy, and you can see that it is a point for point perfect match to it. So somebody either that video is Gorgon Stare, or it's some version of Gorgon Stare that they call something else. But because what happened is they had multiple versions, and Gorgon Stare Increment 2 is when they integrated the Argus system into it. And that's probably the system that we're looking at, but it could be an even better version because they upgraded it more and more. And now, actually, today, I think the system's obsolete, and they've got an even better one. So there you go. Sorry to rant.
No, you're killing it. And the the weird part about all this investigation and you being like you is the idea that there's a fourth orb somewhere in these videos, and your last name is Forbes, like 4
Yeah.
orbs, and it is just it's just so synchronistic. And
And do you know who the person is who came up with the 4 orbs thing? I mean, man, it's so weird.
what? Who?
So, my buddy Dave Rossi is the one that came up with it. And finding him is super crazy too, because I've been talking about, even just earlier today on the podcast with Bob Grenier, that he's working on some microchip that's like a gravity microchip with Gary Stevenson, and that they were Hal Puthoff might be connected or interested in it. And so I'm just going, like, thinking about this in my head, and I'm just wondering what game is being played and how deep in this am I right now? Because I found Dave Rossi from watching. I interviewed Salvatore Pais, was my first interview, and then
Love that
he went
one.
on. Yeah, great interview. He went on with alien scientist Jeremy Reese on this big panel, and Dave Rossi was on the panel, and I was watching it, and I'm just listening to Dave interact with Sal, and I'm going, this guy Dave Rossi knows like way more, and I didn't know anything about the physics at that point, but I could just tell. And so and everyone in the Discord knows this story because I mentioned, I'm like, somebody find me who this guy is, right? I don't know if he was using a real name. And then I get this message from this person that I had been, contacting with. I thought it was a podcast or something. And they go, I'm Dave. I'm like, what? You're the Dave Rossi that I was just looking at right there. And so ever since we've like become friends, and, he's a defense contractor that has worked on this stuff. And he and I have talked a lot, privately, publicly, to the degree where he felt comfortable enough coming on to Tim Pool with me last year and saying that he had seen like literal teleportation experiments in private labs before. And most people just brush it off because they think there's no way he can be telling the truth. But if you look at the stuff he's done, it's hard to deny his
and and
background as an
and
engineer.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the theory is that the fourth orb is at the location upon which
Yeah.
the teleportation is going on. So we see 3 orbs go create a teleportation wormhole, and the fourth orb is at the receiving end.
So look
Correct?
at it like this, and this is why, like, the more and more I think about, like, Dave has to be legit. Like, how did he come up with this? Because at first I thought it was silly. I'm like, what is it? What do you mean 4? Why would you need another 4th orb somewhere? And this is me before I understood the physics. And now I think about it, I'm like, oh, it's so obvious. So the way that you would do it is everything's actually just simple. Don't think of it as being very complicated. Just think of things like positive and negative charges. Think of everything in terms of electric charge. So our 3 orbs are going to have a cumulus, let's say, +3 charge, or it can be minus. It doesn't even necessarily matter. The 4th orb is going to have a counteracting charge. Why? Because positives or opposites attract, right? So it's going to have a opposite, either positive or -3 charge. And now, how do we get them to come together? We need the distance between them to become less and less, right? And just like two magnets, the closer they get together, they're going to pop together. So how do we do that? Well, if we look at quantum tunneling might have the answer to us for us. In quantum tunneling, you can have a semiconductor, which is something where electrons can, they say, flow through them, and then a wall, an insulator, and then another semiconductor, and somehow the electrons jump the gap right through the wall. They shouldn't have the energy to be able to do that. How are they doing that? They're doing that because they are essentially pushing through this extra dimension. There's a ripple in this extra dimension that we don't visually see, but that ripple goes through the wall and hits the other side. And so this idea, if you take this analogy and apply it on the macroscopic scale, you'd say, well, what's the wall? Well, if we boil it down to the physics of wormholes, you would say the wall is the 0 point energy. The 0 point energy is the wall, because the 0 point energy is what makes up the space-time. Space-time as we see it, everything around us, distance. So if that goes away, now that's the equivalent of taking your wall, your barrier, and shrinking it, making it smaller and smaller. So I think what they're doing is they're pushing all the 0 point energy away, possibly through them coming together and creating this big electromagnetic burst like an EMP, pushes all the 0 point energy away for a brief second, and that weakens the barrier. And then then the plane is essentially in, imagine it being in like the ether and nowhere, and what it's looking for somewhere to pop back out. Just like if you were to bob your head underwater and your head bobs back out, it's looking for somewhere to bob out. Where's it going to go out? It's going to go to wherever it's being attracted towards, the fourth orb. That's where it's going to go. So that's why I love the four orbs thing, and I love that I went all in on the branding on it, my last name, because I think it's a good chance it's going to be real. If it's not, it's going to be awkward, but whatever.
Yeah, it's almost synchronistic too. It's like the truth is coming out through you. So,
Yeah, I don't know about that, but Dave did tell me one time that he thought there was some spiritual aspect to this, and I always
yeah.
think about it sometimes. It's kind of weird.
I mean, he's
wonder.
probably right, dude. I mean, that's what I've been thinking the whole time. Like, it's deep,
You gotta
and
realize I'm a very grounded guy, though.
I
I mean,
know
sure, people may say, hey, you believe in orbs and teleportation, but you gotta realize, guys, like before all this, I wasn't an aliens guy. I mean, I didn't have any problem with aliens, but I wasn't like waiting for them to come beam me home. I wasn't even really big into conspiracies, although I was, open to the idea of government being corrupt. I didn't think they would like target a civilian airliner. I mean, I'm still struggling to wrap my head around
it's
that.
heavy.
Do you
And
believe in God, Ashton? I don't know if I ever asked you. Do you believe in God, or like what's your view on that stuff?
yeah,
Curious.
I used to be actually atheist when I was in like high school going into college, and then I became actually more agnostic. And then through actually this investigation, I've had a spiritual reawakening, so to speak, as well. Where now, personally, I'm very spiritual. I was raised Roman Catholic, so I have a healthy respect for the Bible and the teachings. But for me, I think that the one aspect that the physics teaches me is this idea that the soul could be connected to this 0 point energy, to this ether of energy. And that's where consciousness could come from. So to me, that's like, I don't know, some profound kind of understanding from all this.
Right.
Nice.
And that could be God too. I mean, maybe God is everything. Maybe God is the universe. I don't know.
Right. The
Hey,
omnipresence. Go ahead, Jen.
hey, Ashton, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. We saw this kind of weird announcement from the White House that kind of caught some by surprise that said that they have the ability to bend time and space. And I mean, with what we're looking at, do you think like do you think this is our military doing it and like taking it to Diego Garcia, or is it something like not, and they're not in control of this stuff, right? Because you see with like the missing 411, I mean those orbs I didn't look that big. So if they can make an entire airline disappear, these people that go walking in the woods and you turn around for a second and they're gone, like, is it the same kind of thing?
Good question. Really good question. And weirdly, I didn't even really think about like how all that stuff worked until like about a week ago. And so now that's where my focus has been, and why I haven't been focusing as much on the science, because I've been trying to understand how these black operations function. And right away, like almost everything in this case, the more I begin to look into it, the more I'm like pretty much convinced right away that's exactly what happens. That this was a CIA operation. Turns out Obama was going wild in 2013, 2014, and their innocent kill rate on these drone strikes they were doing was like 90% or higher, potentially. They actually were doing reports at the end of each year for all the major ops that they do. I couldn't believe this stuff. So some guy leaked this. Should get his name. Was it Daniel Hale? Something like that. He went to prison for 9 years for leaking this. And so now I'm sitting here wondering, this has got to be connected, right? It's got to be. They got too crazy with it. They targeted those, like they probably gave those Freescale semiconductor engineers like a high priority or something like that. And then somebody pulled the trigger to say like, oh, well, 200 people for 20 people. Like we'll do it. And then, but again, this is highly speculative still at this point, but I don't think it can be just simple military. I think that what's happening here is the CIA is working with the defense contractors, and essentially when the newest technology comes out, they're basically the way the deal works is that you get all the contracts and we don't mess with you like protection money, and you give us the orb tech, you give us the Gorgon Stare most recent version before everybody else gets it. And then the CIA has access to this technology, but I don't even think they're the ones necessarily like deploying it. They're probably using the defense contractors in some cases, like actively. So like maybe Lockheed Martin deploys those orbs. I mean, it's hard to say exactly, but definitely an extremely incestuous relationship between the intelligence community, the defense contractors, and I guess JSOC and like the special operations people are the ones pulling it out. So for me, the way I imagine it plays out, one last thing is that they have this idea of the green door, and I'm not a military guy, so you guys can probably say more about this, but that like if you're in these joint special forces, SOCOM, SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, you just get an assignment like, hey, here's an opportunity, take this assignment, you go through the green door. This will help you out because you're going to know about magical technology, but like you take this and you can't put this on your resume. And if you talk about this, like you're going to be killed or put in prison for the rest of your life. So don't, and this is why I know there's no way that somebody who was on the operation leaked those videos. There's no chance, 0% chance that they trust anybody to be on that operation that would have any chance of leaking those videos. Somebody else saw those videos and leaked it. And that's why I'm sure it was Edward Lynn.
I want to dive into all of that. Jen, to your point, did you guys see that Tim Burchett came out, I believe today or yesterday, and basically said about that whole bending time space thing, like we're not going to disclose any of that shit for military, right?
It was
For
Burleson.
national security.
Yeah. Or maybe Burchett too. They're all going to do it, man. So that's another great point. So the time and space thing, I think the White House is letting this stuff leak. Now, if you want synchronicities, that's the thing I'm looking at more in terms of like, I mean, I think you guys are seeing it. Now, I'm not trying to be too egotistical here, but like the stuff I'm pushing out there, we're pushing out there at this point is definitely influencing podcasters and who they have on. I mean, we had Hal Puthoff, Sonny White. We got General Quast going to talk to, or Lieutenant General Quast talking to Sean Ryan. And then we got
that
Trump
one, and you were actually
weapons.
featured in the commercial for that one.
Put me in the feature in the commercial. I mean, that's pretty damn weird. So it does kind of seem like this would be, and the way I would look at it, if I was on the inside, I would say, A, I'm never going to address what Ashton Forbes is saying. It's too dangerous. We're never going to address it. But the other thing I would say is that we can at least use it because the intelligence agencies of the other countries are taking what I'm saying seriously. They know it's real and they're probably getting some information on it. And so Trump, could respond and be like, well, okay, they know we've got teleportation tech. Let's just, leverage it. Like, I mean, that's kind of what he's doing. He's just straight up bitching people like left and right. And it's kind of fun to watch because, yeah, I think he is leveraging that we have that technology.
Well, I correct me if I'm wrong, right? But as I explained when the space got started, Ashton, one of my favorite things about your journey is that, dude, I have learned so much, like, just because you're going down all of these rabbit holes. Like, I know more about physics and quantum than, like, ever before because, like, in order to, like, you just keep running into these obstacles and you have to learn to be able to get around them, right? To be able to explain, like, where did the energy come from? Right? Like, in order to do this, if this theory were like to play out, like you need more energy than we know how to get. enter the whole rabbit, like the side rabbit hole of 0 point energy. I want to say that the last time we had like a deep dive discussion on the whole thing, that your working theory was that we were demonstrating to China in particular and other countries potentially that like we have this tech because of who was on the plane. Is that still the working theory?
Yeah, and just to go back for a second, the we're never going to give this tech up. No way. When I saw Burleson make those comments too, where he was like, yeah, we're going to, he had a defense contractor. He has a defense contractor that says like, it's definitely us. It's not aliens. We got breakthrough technology. I mean, that was a wild statement to make. And then he said that he said that Congress was going to send a message to the White House and Kratsios and like try to figure out what the nature of that was. And if it is terrestrial technology, or even if it was alien, he said basically like whatever was national security is just not going to be revealed. And I think that's what we have to expect. We just have to keep it real. I don't even hate, the Ross Coleharts, the Lou Elizondo people out there. I just want them to be honest about it. If we're just hiding it for national security, just say that, man. Can we at least just have a conversation about that instead of the psyoping us, like pretending like we don't have it? Like, come on, man. We know you got some crazy ass tech out there. And then, sorry, well, I knew I was going to lose my train of thought.
No. We'll elaborate on that. We'll get back to the other thing because so right, like I legitimately, Ashton, have prayed for you for years because like I've always been worried, right? Because I've watched what has happened to people who exposed specifically on energy and other stuff, and I've kind of taken your well-being almost as a sign that like there's a general acceptance that this rabbit hole has to be explored because Ashton, you're still fucking here talking to us, right? And like I've known people in the past that like started to go down this rabbit hole and then, turbo cancer or weird car accident type shit happens. So I've always been worried. It seems though that you've been catching more heat lately. And I wonder if you tie that to like the current subject matter, like where you're going now with the tie between defense contractors.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I like learning where the boundaries are, or like, and I learned where the free energy boundary was as well. And it's kind of interesting to see. For sure, I feel like I'm somewhat being protected, and maybe that's because of the people who I've kind of made friends with or what have you. I don't know. Actually, my real theory on this, because I'm actually wondering how am I still alive at this point. Like we are really, really backing them into a corner at this point, which I'm going to enjoy it till my last breath. Is that I think that they just realize that their whole disclosure thing is such an abject disaster that they're like, we might as well just like let this guy, like he's at least progressing the conversation. Because look at where we were at before this. We were going to get psyoped so hard. Like 1,000 orbs were going to come flying out of the sky, and the whole world was going to think we were under an alien invasion. They were going to 100% believe it too. No question. People still look at those videos and they're 100% sure it's aliens zapping the plane. I think they're looking at it and they're going, hey, he's at least getting the stuff out there, and he can't be, I'm probably not damaging national security as much as I think, because those videos were already out there and any major countries were going to be taking them seriously anyway. They'd already knew that kind of science and technology was possible. And then the Gorgon Stare stuff might be obsolete, but the reason why you saw those attacks, I mean, I even called it out. People were saying it. I called it out on stream when I started calling out Gorgon Stare and calling out Sierra Nevada Corporation. I said, you're going to see the attacks ramp up. Why? Because Gorgon Stare is like kryptonite. Because if that really is Gorgon Stare, and I'm like 99.999% sure, so sure that I'm about to just go all in on it, and if it happens to be wrong and I get totally blasted, whatever. Because what can they do? Like, look at how Ross Coulthart reacted. The first thing, if I was in his shoes and I like dunked on somebody going, that's not satellite video, you're an idiot, and he didn't call me an idiot, but my sources tell me that's not satellite imagery. And then the next day they pop back and bounce back and go, you were right, it's actually Gorgon Stare whammy. If that was me, I would be super embarrassed. As a journalist, I would be super embarrassed. And the very first thing to do, I would call the person up that told me it was not satellite. And I would say, why didn't you say that is that Gorgon Stare? I would be freaked out, because if it's Gorgon Stare, I'm going to look like an idiot. But Ross didn't do any of that. He never reached out to any Air Force contacts at all. Instead, what did he do? He starts parodying anonymous Redditors in communications to people. Like, that's not how people would act if they're being honest. So these attacks too, what the other thing I'm going to point out here is that now people are really seeing how coordinated the attacks are and who's kind of connected to who. You know, even people have noticed now. And this is why I don't like delving into all the mud with that. But I think it's important to point out is that not only are we going to expose these videos, the technology, what the CIA is doing, going to expose what they are willing to do and what they actively do to misinform, disinform people and try to hide this kind of stuff. And you're seeing it. They deflect away from your arguments, from your main points. How many times have you seen somebody actually address my main points and arguments? They never do. Some guy just posted a complete, like this guy that posted this video of, oh, I just warped this image and now it's a perfect match kind of thing. That's 100% propaganda. If it's not state sponsored, I'm going to be surprised. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But what they do in those situations, they just don't even show you the middle. They like zoom in on it. They focus to the right. You're like, wait, where did the middle of the image you said was a perfect match just go? You just made it disappear. Oh, because it doesn't match at all. And, you know, they do the magician's trick of, you know, only showing you one side of the card or what have you. And so we're learning a lot about how they operate and their propaganda operates. So it's a useful time for us. And this hurts them too, because they can keep pushing. But if they do it, they're kind of exposing their methods at this point as well. So it puts them in a really tough spot. I'm enjoying it. And by the way,
Well,
don't kill me. So don't dare them, guys.
I just wanted to take a moment and have everyone repost the space. Okay, we have
Yes.
legendary Ashton Forbes, the coolest, nerd, smartest. You know what I'm saying? How should I say? Like you're kind of leading a movement, Ashton, and you don't even know it. You know, when you came out and you were interested in this and you started getting all the hype and the eyes back on it, you started getting a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon and watching it unfold and surgically taking apart people's arguments. And then these people would disappear. They would come out of like left field and they would disappear. And this is who we have here, guys. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff like the I guess we can go into what the latest is. I definitely wanted to hit on some of the stuff that you and Salvador what's his name? Paez, Salvador
Salvador Paez.
Yes. Okay. There's just, it's really interesting. I think, and that's why I want everybody to repost the space. It's very important. I know I say that, but I'm going to slow it down and say it again because this is a space that people don't want to miss. And I sent Tupa an invite. So if you hit the request button, Tupa, it'll just beam you straight up. I also brought up Eric. I wanted to welcome him to the stage as well. But yeah, with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to you, Augustus, with where you want to go next.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. We've got 400 people here, but only 50 people reposted. Let's get those numbers up to 100. We need 100 reposts and 100 likes in order to basically create a bigger platform, a wider audience for Ashton's story to be heard loud and clear, authentic, and uncut and uncensored. I want to thank you again, Ashton, for answering all of our questions. I know we've gone deep. I know we've talked about some pretty interesting stuff. Hopefully, we can get some questions in and some interactions in that people haven't seen before or heard before, because you're on it, bro.
Speaking about
You're on
interaction, I
it.
see Chris Ramsey down there. Bring him up too. I want him to ask some questions. I've seen a
I
lot of
saw
his
Chris
stuff.
was here. Yeah, I wanted to bring him up, but wasn't sure. I want to make sure you're comfortable. So I
I'm
sent him an
comfortable answering
invite.
questions from anybody. You know what? I'm at the point where I want to be interacting with everyone. It's not me that's afraid to talk to people. I don't know why everybody feels like they're like I'm some kind of monster or something like that. But I've been watching people who are in the UFO space and stuff like that. And I think I've got a good grasp of the people who are like honestly trying to find the truth, trying to find answers out there. And I don't really want to be adversarial towards people, you know, in
I
general.
love Chris Ramsey's stuff. I've been following him for a long time too. So Chris, if you can hear my voice,
He doesn't
please
have to. I didn't
please
mean to
join
call
me.
him out, but I just happened to see him down there.
Um,
We should talk about the Sal Pais patents, though, real quick, if you
yeah,
want to talk
that would
about
be
some other
great.
companies.
I actually, dude, my aunt is like the U.S. patent attorney, and I was over her house the other day and was like, "Yo, let's talk about these UFO patents." She had no idea what I was talking about, like, and it was super authentic and genuine. Like, she wasn't lying to me; she just was uninformed. and she was like, we should talk about this more. So,
Like, how did those get out? Like, if you
yeah,
think
bro,
about it,
what the heck?
even I've asked Sal several times on and off the record, and from what I can kind of piece together, I mean, Sal, it seems like he's trying to do the right thing to get this technology and science he knows exists out to the public, maybe in a way where he feels like it'll be hard for it to be suppressed. That's kind of the impression I get from what he was doing. And the big thing, so if people aren't familiar with the patents, I mean, these patents are incredible. High energy electromagnetic field generator, magnetically confined fusion reactor, high energy or high frequency gravitational wave generator, inertial mass reduction, and then super high temperature superconductivity patent. And you add this up and you go, if you're somebody who loves the physics, you go, wait, this like adds up to a flying saucer or maybe a plasma orb, actually. And that's what drove me to Sal. And he's been very forthcoming with information. And one of the big things that he revealed on the last time I just interviewed him publicly was that he got like blackballed because he had these patents come out. He supposedly was going to get a team together. He had presented the ideas or what have you for his high energy electromagnetic field generator, which is kind of what enables everything. And he got what he told me, because I can't remember. I want to be careful if I say the right thing. Basically, I'm under the impression that Jay Stratton was the one that basically shut down the process. I don't know if he was he was probably directed by somebody. I think I asked if it was Eric Davis was involved, because I think all those guys are kind of the ones who figured this technology out or have been gatekeeping it like in the early 2000s. So the way I think it happened is that Sal's super pissed right now because he was trying to get this stuff out and they basically screwed him over and basically shut it down. And why would they shut him down? Why would they shut down a U.S. Navy engineer who's trying to patent UFO patents? Because they've already got it. They got it. They don't want it to come out, right? So they don't want him to research it. They don't want him to do that. They know it works already. That's the only thing I can figure out.
That's a hot take. And we got Chris on stage as well as whistleblower Eric Hecker on stage.
Hey, Eric, what's up? Hey, Chris.
Yeah, guys, chime in.
Hey, hey, yeah. I mean, I'm enjoying just kind of listening and learning from all of this because I'll be honest, like I don't want to say anything that makes me sound ignorant because I don't know much about this to be honest, but I've been enjoying hearing about it. I guess if I had a question to ask Ashton, out of all the evidence that you've acquired and looked into, what's the thing that makes you believe strongly that this is sort of U.S. tech versus adversarial or even extraterrestrial?
Yeah, see, great question. This is why I got you up, Chris. And I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to ask me a bunch of questions, but
Of
that's
course.
a great question because I get that a lot, especially from people in the UFO community who will say, how are you so sure that's not alien technology or even Chinese or something like that? And for me, the thing that really made it like 100% is actually the details of the cameras and what they're recording. Why are they recording that? This is the first question people usually ask. Who's recording that? Where's that camera hiding in the sky? It's not hiding in the sky. It's on a drone above the airplane, and that airplane's flying very low, close to the water. And there's another drone horizontal to it, right next to it. Why are there two drones right next to a civilian airliner that's in the Nicobar Islands above the ocean? Well, in my mind, there was only two options to begin with. One, that was a rescue operation. Maybe that went poorly. And two, that whole thing was a hostile, covert operation. And when the revelation in the last couple of weeks that that's actually Gorgon stare whammy wide area motion imagery kind of sunk in on me, and that it wasn't really a satellite video at all. Although I actually ironically think they do have that exact capability on satellites now or something very similar to it. But when that revelation sunk in, I started to realize dug into that technology, and the Gorgon stare increment 2, which is what that has to be, or more modern, that would have been brand new at that time. I think it was even actually Average Chris who pointed out publicly they only had maybe like less than 10 pods at that point for that Gorgon stare. So if that's a covert operation, that means the CIA is involved or joint forces. And if that's then Gorgon stare, that means they're they're basically using the most advanced spy surveillance capabilities, possibly even before the Air Force was using it. So this implies that this whole thing is potentially a hostile operation. And then the FLIR, a lot of people point out, well, most of the FLIRs that I've seen are black and white. Yeah, almost all the ones I've seen too. So there's a couple different cameras that could be. One of them is this lightning pod camera, which the color FLIR capability was only public. It was probably available. I mean, obviously it was available before, but publicly not standard until 2021, which would imply these people were using color FLIR that is like really deep that we haven't even publicly seen right now today. So these things imply that this is a covert operation that was planned in advance. The assets were ready to go. They would have only had about 1 hour from the time when the plane went dark in the South China Sea and turned around to the coordinates we see in the Nicobar Islands west of that location. Only about an hour to hour and 20 minutes. So for it to be a rescue operation was already pretty thin timing. But upon the reveal that they've got these super advanced assets like covertly surveilling this plane in the middle of nowhere, means that it was probably all planned. Oh, and last point is that the drones generally can't keep up with the speed of a Boeing 777, so they would have had to have intercepted it as well. So those are the main
So,
reasons. Go ahead.
so on that, Ashton, for me, that's one of the things that's never. It's always seemed somewhat obvious to me when you look at like the manifest of who was on the plane. And I'm still convinced, by the way, that the reason that there was all the lithium ion batteries on board also lends to this idea of it being an operation that I still have a general sense that the right. So the manifest, I always get the number wrong. How many scientists were
Yeah,
on
the
that? What was
engineers.
that thing?
Well, so let me say first that the last point I want just to close off that last thought is that I mean there's several different things to like be convinced it's not like aliens, because now we're saying okay, either they had that operation, that's an operation, they randomly caught these orbs zapping the plane, or they control the orbs. So when I found all the scientific papers and ones that included people like Eric Davis, who's sitting front and center at these UFO hearings, with the Air Force Research Labs, basically anything by Frank Mead where his name's on anything in there, it adds up to these orbs. At first, I was thinking Salvatore Pais's patents were the ones that add up to the orbs, and that was so naive of me. No, they had it figured out way before that. They had it figured out at least 10 years before that. That's when you look at the ball lightning paper by Eric Davis, teleportation physics study by Eric Davis. I think they figured out the plasma orbs in like the 90s with the Marauder project. Probably the Breakthrough Physics Lab project with NASA was probably secretly working on a little bit of that too. And then they figured out how to make the orbs. And then either AI or Eric Davis jumped in. They figured out kind of how to teleport them, or maybe
Was
even other crazier stuff.
was there
Go ahead.
thanks for that. Was there I had seen, and again, I'm not too read up on this, but
Yeah, no problem.
didn't the plane also make a sharp turn before it disappeared?
Yeah, so the first sharp turn it makes, so it flies for 40 minutes northeast from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, and it goes dark over the South China Sea. That's the first point of interest. And it goes dark like 64 seconds after a very mundane communication by the pilot. So this is why people are like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, wow, how can a plane go dark like 1 minute after the pilot's just casually going, good night, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370? And so a lot of people point out this seems like this would have been something intentional happened here, because now you just said goodbye. Now this is the perfect time to have somebody slip in and take control of the plane or something like that. But instead, what I think happened is some batteries ignited. There were lithium ion batteries in the forward cargo bay. The more I've learned about these Boeing 777s too, it seems like the worst spot to put lithium ion batteries in the forward cargo bay is right next to the electronics bay. And the more I've learned about the heat signatures we're seeing in terms of maybe smoke coming out of the plane, I think it's venting smoke through the plane from the forward cargo bay. And so the plane turns around because of this fire. The fire is what knocks out the power of the plane. And people say, well, why didn't they call in for a rescue? I think they did. I think they just never released any of those communications. I think they knew it was hostile, that kind of event. And then the plane goes directly to Penang. It turns around, sharp turn. Had to be they actually know, I think at this point, that it was a manual turn back. your point, Chris, not automatic turn back. And it goes directly to the nearest airport, Penang. That's where you go land a Boeing 777 in an emergency event. The weirdest part is it doesn't land there. And that's why I spoke to the former security director of the FAA, Billy Vincent, really smart guy. And actually, he's a little bit knowledgeable about UFOs, but he did not think the videos were real, but he was still knowledgeable about UFOs, but he's very knowledgeable about fires on airplanes. And he was the one that told me it was like UPS Flight 6. And I look up UPS Flight 6. UPS Flight 6 had a lithium-ion battery fire on board. It just wasn't a passenger plane. It was a cargo plane. And the smoke knocked out the pilot before he can even get his hood on. And the co-pilot got his hood on, and you would wonder, why didn't they just land the plane? Well, he tried, but he couldn't see because of the smoke was occluding the cockpit windshield. And the plane ended up crashing, and then they both ended up dying. So go ahead. Yep.
Sorry. The reason I ask is because,
Yeah, sure.
I've read this, this alleged whistleblower on 4chan come out about him being part of some crash retrieval
Oh, yeah, I know.
and, monitoring this underwater.
base?
Yeah, exactly. And, this happened over a large body of water. And one thing that he did say in that statement was that these things, if you got near them or if you cornered them or if you did any sharp turns, that's when they would take you out.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that for me popped up right away when I heard about the sharp turn. Is this some type of system, that could be in place to be like, oh, this is a threat, we got to neutralize it type deal?
What's funny is that was like one of the first thoughts I had. And if people listen to the very first podcast I ever went on, which was Investigate Earth with Chad and Sherry, that was where I was like, in my head, I might even mention it in that podcast because I was just kept thinking about that 4chan whistleblower and how they were talking about, things just straight up disappear and how it shocked people and they couldn't believe it just wasn't there anymore. And I wanted that actually to be what was going on in the videos. But no, because that sharp turn back was a different point in time. And we do see the plane actually doing a sharp turn in the videos, but the sharp turn the plane's doing in the videos is actually like a landing maneuver, like a circle landing type maneuver.
I see.
So I'm not saying I'm not certain necessarily ruling it out, but like I said before, unless they were like doing an operation on the plane related to like the fire maybe, and then that just happened to trigger somehow that. But the other part, the reason why I didn't go super far down that was that I think that person was saying it was in the Atlantic Ocean and not the Indian Ocean. Now there could have been another one or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I would assume too, is that there's probably multiple.
But here's the truth. I kind of believe that, man, because you saw probably the other more recent 4chan whistleblower that was corroborating them.
Yeah, and also Matthew Brown,
here's the thing.
He'd mentioned a few things that kind of lined up as well.
I'll give you a little a thread that you can pull and maybe ask some other people on, is that one of the freakiest things about the videos, the thing that still made me question the authenticity of the videos for the longest time, was that when the plane disappears, it just doesn't disturb anything. It's like it just goes through a mirror in a movie, right? It's just there and then it's not there. And that still, like, it wasn't until like a couple months ago where I started to piece together that could be like some type of quantum tunneling. But that's exactly what the person in that second 4chan whistleblower said about that submarine. They said the submarine just wasn't there. The acoustic detection, nothing. And what that person's saying, why would you be so freaked out if a submarine disappears? Because if a submarine disappears, the water is going to displace, that area is going to be displaced to where it was.
Right.
And what they're saying there is that didn't happen. Why? How could that not happen?
Yeah, I think he said it was like vaporized or something, just completely, disappeared.
No, but he says not necessarily vaporized. He says like their theory was that it got like sucked back in to the base, and the base just
even the pilot. They said there was a pilot that came close and it just went dark. Yeah. Like his comms just stopped and he was just gone.
So I think about that, and the answer to that is space-time manipulation. That's how they're doing it. Is that space-time? It's the exact same thing as what Eric Davis and them have been talking about. Is that this idea of this negative energy has this? It looks straight up magical to us because it's creating this very temporary bubble, but it's manipulating time itself. So even though for us it looks like a split second, for the people inside the bubble, it could look like, for them, it could take a bunch of time. could go by, because time dilation is what starts to mess everything up, where now someone's rate of time is slower or faster than, you know, our outside rate of time. And that could possibly be the answer, where everything's correcting itself. It's just happening so fast from our outside perspective that by the time the bubble disappears, then everything's already back to normal again. So this is one of the things where I actually don't even know the full answer just yet. My best theory now is that wormholes are like some form of quantum tunneling, and that what they do is that they're able to actually cause physical objects to revert to wave functions, fermions to bosons, and then basically revert back when it pops out on the other side. That's my best theory now, called macroscopic phase conjugation. So if you hear any of that, or
And
might help.
and do you think that do you think that like it could, like when it pops out on the other side, pop out at a different time?
Yeah. So that would be like it being stuck in superposition. In fact, if that's what happened, I think it did pop out at a different time. I don't think it necessarily popped out instantly. But I mean, I have no idea how you would even determine it, because it's going to depend on how, I guess, far the plane traveled. But if you then argue that if you're going through this ether or extra dimension to do that, you know, maybe there is no distance there. So the biggest mystery for me is going to be whether or not there is retro causality, like whether or not we can go back in time or send a message even back in time. And this is one of the big things the UFO community is currently kind of debating, which is the answer future humans to the alien thing?
Yeah.
And so personally, my current belief right now is I'm on the deterministic bandwagon at the moment, which would mean that there's not multiple universes and you can't really go back in time the way we would think of it. More that it would be more, time travel would be more like reversing your local aging process, or like reversing disease, not so much like you traveling back to a previous time. But I mean, we're way too soon to tell until we see. If I saw the plane come on the other side, I think we could probably figure that out. And I bet you they were recording on the other side, and they were probably with a stopwatch calculating exactly how much later the plane comes out on the other side to answer that question of, you know, super determinism. And for the people that may wonder, could it be like Manifest or whatever, where the plane comes out, well, it's 10 years later or something? I should watch a show, but theoretically, yes. Do I think that was the case then? No, because there was a lot of circumstantial evidence, like this debris that was found in Africa, the phones still ringing. Things like that lead me to believe that this plane didn't go to another galaxy or dimension. It was back here again, still on Earth. And this, kind of to Chris's point, may be another clue that it's terrestrial human technology and not alien technology, because I would think the aliens maybe would zap you to Zeta Reticuli or something like that.
I mean, and I feel like we've had enough clues at this point to dive in. So Ashton, on the you glossed over, right? I kind of let you get away with it. That like you found where the line was on 0 point energy, on like how far you were allowed to push and not allowed to push. What,
Yeah.
what what's the line? Like the machines? Like you can't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
can't
Making
spread
them.
those around.
I wouldn't want to be, I don't want to be in the business of, I don't want to be competing with big oil and big energy, probably. And if you are competing with it, don't let them know that you're competing with them. That would be my main advice. Because I mean, one of the things I realized, like, okay, this stuff's real. That means a lot of these free energy device people have been real, right? Too. Maybe not all of them, but probably a good percentage of them. And you go, okay, well, how come they weren't able to be successful? And then, well, I think a lot of you guys know it's not just simply like killing people. They probably used to do that more in the past, but with forensics, it's a lot more difficult. So now they rely on discrediting people, you know, buying them out, setting them up. The CIA will run ops, or, you know, maybe not if they, you know, depends on the legality, but they can run ops and set you up to get stuck invested in something that screws your life over. It's just they have a million different ways to stop you from ever getting your product to the commercial level. And that's why they do that part. And then when I realized that, I was like, oh, I'm not even going to bother like selling devices or building anything. I'm not even going to bother building stuff myself. Why would I do that? People have already done all that stuff. The battle we're facing is an information war. That's what this battle is. This battle's not a battle of figuring out secret physics. That was already figured out too.
All right, I'm gonna drop back down. Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
no problem,
Ashton,
Chris.
for
Thanks.
answering those questions, and thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate you,
Amazing.
man.
Augustus is grabbing food. Go
Yeah,
ahead, jump
Chris.
right in.
Thanks, Chris. Definitely give me a follow, Chris. Would love to stay in touch with you. Long time listener, first time caller. You know how it is. Maze, I see your hands raised, and just chime in. It's popcorn style. We're keeping a tight ship here. But before we get to you, actually, Ashton, how you feeling? You've been here for an
Yeah. No,
hour.
let's give me a good space. Let's keep it rolling.
All
We're
right,
in the
cool,
groove here.
cool, cool. You're the man, bro. Go ahead, Maze.
Yeah, we haven't even hit on the patents yet, so maybe I should go in that direction. I just, I had a quick question for Ashton. I found what you said about like, the kind of the whole ether. It's interacting with the ether and where time space is so different. Do you even think that they knew where the airplane potentially teleported to? Like, is I don't know if you'd said that. I had a phone call that came in and I was like, shoot. But is that what your take is that they possibly don't even know?
I mean, if it's an experiment, if it's a test, the thing is, when you look at that, it's like the movement of the orbs is so perfect. It doesn't look like that was somebody's first try at that. It looks like they've done. That's not the first rodeo, is what it feels like when you watch those videos with that. So I feel like
It
they
was
did
like with
know where
AI
to go.
precision, right? Like it
Oh
seemed.
yeah, and I definitely think it's AI guidance systems that they're using. They're probably even more advanced than what Elon Musk is using right now to land those rockets. And they're probably even inside the orbs. Maybe they might not even be transmitting from outside. So I think they knew, but sure, there is certainly an angle where I think that, to the question of why they would do this and what have you, we know about these Freescale semiconductor engineers that were on board, 20 engineers on board the plane. Very high probability of there being an espionage angle there, where those people were being leveraged by China because 8 of them were Chinese and they were working for the American company, Freescale Semiconductors. Um, there's that angle. There's also an angle where this could be like a message to our adversaries. I mean, the Crimea War was going on at the time as well. So this is kind of a power play. I mean, it's kind of sick to think about that could be the reason. But there could also be an element of them wanting, they don't get a lot of opportunities to use something like this, too high risk. So when you do use it, you want to record it and get the most information so that you can show the Eric Davises of the world, and the Hal Puthoffs of the world, so that they can get the information to confirm the theories and the science, and then make the even better ones. And I guarantee you they did.
Yeah, I think we would, there's plenty of reasons, but I do agree that I think that there was a lot of important people on that plane, and there was, I don't know.
Well, so here's let me ask or go to one thing. Is like they're at the problem is actually not that many reasons. The thing that I've been struggling with is just not enough reasons for me. Like, was Hitler on that plane? Like, why are we targeting a civilian airliner? Like, there's got to be a million other plans that we could have done that would accomplish
Were there not
something
like a bunch
similar
of
to this.
scientists or something on the plane? I swear I thought that's what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said.
the bunch of science, but even that, like, okay, well, have
Well,
them go
yeah, it's
to,
not justified for sure.
have them go to some conference and then just drug them or something, right? Like, teleport an airplane. There's 219 other people on the plane. There was 4 Americans, including an adult American passenger.
Well, maybe they
This is
needed
the
them in that other dimensional like space where they could figure out how to get back. Yeah.
This is where I'm like on Chris's thing going, man, I wish this is aliens, because I'm thinking, like, how do I rationalize humans doing this? And this is why, if you guys saw my interaction with like Robert J. O'Neill, like, honestly, I sent him a message. Was like, man, there's just not a lot of people that can understand like my mental space right now, and I kind of just want to talk to him because I want to understand. Like, Robert J. O'Neill knows those videos are real. I almost guarantee it. Anyone in special forces, they probably do. I feel like the public might even be the only people that don't know. And I just want to understand how somebody in that place, he's probably killed, I don't even know how many people, probably a lot. And he's probably seen crazy stuff they can never talk about, stuff where like you would never could justify it if the public found out. And I just want to understand, like, how do you compartmentalize that information? Because even I'm struggling with it. It got to the point where like I'm struggling more with like, how did we even do this and let this happen? We're from a country where like we should never be allowing something this horrific to occur. How do we even let that happen? I don't even care so much about the orbs, you know?
And what do we not know, you know?
Yeah, if we're doing that, what else are we doing? What else are we doing?
And the crazy thing about the interview you did with Salvador, so for those of you that don't know, he came up with these patents. They were like the plasma compression fusion device, and there was another one, high frequency gravitational wave generator, and then I think one that had to do with inertial what was it,
Mass
mass
reduction? Yeah.
yes. But the crazy part about the interview, which I would love to know more about your thoughts on him saying that he's seen this before. Like, hasn't he seen this before? He kind of confirmed that this isn't new.
I would love to know what he's seen. Oh man, would I love to know what he's seen. I mean, just look like, think about the psychological state of Sal, a guy that's worked for private defense contractors, works for the U.S. Navy. I mean, what are our Navy engineers doing? I mean, I imagine they're just making weapons that just annihilate people, like scariest stuff you could possibly imagine. So for him to be coming out so boldly and saying the stuff that he's saying about science and physics like that, especially when he and those guys, keep in mind, they have to keep on airs, so to speak, for the academic community. They have to be nice with the academic community. So they can't just come out and be like, oh, yep, all the Tesla magic, EM, phase conjugation stuff's real, because the academics will destroy them if they say that. So he lives in this world where he's got to, put on a mask to talk with the academics while he steps in this other world of pure magic. You can imagine what that does to someone's psychological state. It was Dave Rossi telling me they have to have staff psychologists at these private labs because people go nuts, because people are driving home in their gas powered cars and they're building 0 point energy fusion reactors, for Lockheed Martin and stuff like that. So for Sal, to be saying all that, what he is, I imagine the answer is that was 100% exposed to like Thomas Townsend Brown, asymmetrical capacitor type science, probably with the defense contractors he worked at. And he maybe even had ideas that stuff like that was real when he was doing his postgraduate stuff. And then with the Navy, he's probably, worked on completely nuts things that, confirm that he knows all that's real. And I think the extra thing with Sal is that he figured out the same thing that I've been figuring out, which is he figured out who the people are who figured the science out, who the people are who are gatekeeping it too. So not only did he figure this stuff out, but he also figured out, it's the Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, is the people in this UFO community. Because you guys notice that like Sal Pies doesn't get all the interviews on these UFO stuff, and he's got these patents. Like, why has he not been getting the airtime that a lot of these other people have been getting? It's because, well, they've been gatekeeping him. Now he gets some interviews, but not a lot.
But they make it all speculative. That's why. Like they kind of, put the speculative spin on it. Like they're just,
And here's the thing, though, because that's the weak point. So keep in mind, again, this is all just a big game of information warfare. So they know Sal's weak point. Sal can't say the stuff that he has NDAs he's bound to. Publicly, the high energy electromagnetic field generator didn't produce a very, very low amount of energy. But Sal was still super high on it. Why? Because he knew there was ways to make it to produce a huge amount of energy. But publicly, he can't say that. Can't say that because those results are all classified. They're all behind the books or whatever. So they know the weak point. The weak point is you can say there's no proof. There's no proof any of this stuff works. It's all just a bunch of theories. And then the other thing they do, and I forget the guy's name, Park, I think his name is. They had this one guy I found. He was from University of Maryland, this physicist. And the government would just go to him every time someone with a free energy device or anything like this would come up. And he would go and testify in any court case they wanted and just say it's all pseudoscience, none of this stuff's real whatsoever. He wouldn't even look or review the devices. And I found him connected now to multiple different court cases that the United States government ran against free energy type people or people related to this science. He's dead now, so I don't want to, speak ill of the dead, but that's how they were doing it and how they were pulling it off, manipulating academia.
See, that's the scary shit when they start like passing away, and you just like when I don't know how he passed, but that's. Go ahead, Augustus. Sorry.
You know who was another like guardrail gatekeeper type that I actually had on my Preservation of the Human Race X Spaces show, and I was so happy when you came up, was
Oh, Avi.
Avi Loeb, and you came up as a guest speaker and really had my back with what I was trying to hammer home. And bro, like, you really exposed him. People were talking about it like up until just actually like yesterday. Somebody brought it up.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like expose people or what have you, you know. And I had a great conversation with Professor Loeb, and it's crazy because he's one of my heroes, you know. And it's just wild because I've personally gone through a journey of being blue pilled to being a red pill type person, and it's really hard for me to assess whether or not some of these people, even like Ross Coulthart as well, whether or not they're being genuine or if they really are, you know, being directed in terms of the narratives and the things that they're saying. I always try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And I think that the reality is that a lot of people, they're not on the government payroll or anything like that. They're not really disinformation. It's hard. The only reason why we can't tell the difference is because the brainwashing has been so good, so complete, that unfortunately for some people, they're just never going to wake up. They're just never going to wake up. They just can't believe that. Like for Avi, for example, you know, if you guys listen to that conversation, that interaction, strongly recommend listening to it because, you know, to Augustus's point, I basically said all the things that everybody wants to say to all the academics. Like, if it's out there, it's like Avi would say, if they had it, they wouldn't be able to keep it secret. Are you kidding me? Keeping it secret turned out to be the easiest part of all this stuff. Like, what did we just say about Sal's patents? Nobody believes it because there's no, as long as they don't make anything public by a credential or, you know, authoritative sources, then nobody will believe it. And you say they couldn't, that nobody would leak it. It would leak out if it was real. Yeah, it is leaking out all the time. Listen to this space. We're talking about 2 videos of a plane being zapped away. We got Eric Hecker up here, who was down in Antarctica, who could tell that the power systems didn't match what they're supporting. There must be something else going down there. There's whistleblowers all the time. And even, you know what? Even Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff, those guys are still my heroes, even if they are gatekeepers. What I want more than anything is for people to just be honest. I'm so tired of all the backroom stuff. If you're going to protect national security because you think national security is more important than free energy for the world, then just say it. Let's just have let's have that discussion. Let's have it. Let's try to figure out a way where we can meet, maybe, and compromise, maybe figure out a way where we're not going to annihilate ourselves and make this stuff available.
Eric, can you chime in?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess first and foremost, I would just like to say I agree with Ashton that the war right now is on information, and we need to be very careful about the massive amounts of disinformation being around. I did have a couple of questions that I think are very easy. First one was, Ashton, have you said anything about the altitude of the plane when you think the event occurred? And then my second question was, you've done a copious amount of research looking into the types of systems and their names regarding the observation of the event. Have you done research, or do you intend to do research to discover the types of technologies that caused the event?
Yeah, good questions. Yeah, altitude, planes very low. Those cumulus clouds are a huge clue for us. And that's why people don't really like to address the cumulus clouds, because it shows that plane's flying really low, and that's a huge piece of evidence. And, you know, one of the things too, I said, again, this sounds very confident, which is that knowing the videos are real, we can actually kind of glean a little information based on what people are, what type of stuff, like the people debunking it are attacking. They attack the zap, they attack the trails of the from the plane. They say are contrails, but contrails only form at high altitudes. So the clouds are a big problem for them because cumulus clouds only form at very low altitudes, 1 to 5,000 feet. So now we have a pretty interesting story being told in that video. We see smoke coming out of the back of a plane. Maybe it's exhaust, but I'm very confident that it's smoke. The plane's flying really low, like just a few thousand feet. Like you can't use your electronic device if you're that low. So that plane looks like it's landing in the ocean. And this allows then for the drone to be filming above it. One of the reasons why I discounted the whole scenario of the drone filming above it was I thought there's no way a drone could be above it and we could get that perspective. But one of the things that I fed into AI was it to try to calculate the distance of where an object would be recording that based on the size of the plane and knowing there's a Boeing 777. And the first thing it spit back to me, assuming that's between 2,000 and 5,000 feet, that plane, that the drone would be around 18,000 feet above it, which I thought, wow, because that was way lower than I thought. I thought it was going to be something like 50,000, some impossible altitude. Nope, actually a very reasonable altitude. So that's the kind of the question on the altitude and why it's important. It also then means that that's not contrails coming out of the plane. It implies that it's possibly smoke. And I'm not meaning that the plane's on fire. It's not, obviously it's not like literally on fire. I'm just saying that there's a fire inside that plane that's causing, theoretically, it to land in the ocean. And then to your point on the technology, I've been having a lot of soul searching. I kind of do every day about this topic in terms of especially national security, because truthfully, like, I do understand the gatekeepers from why you hide this. I don't think we're ready for it. I don't think we're ready for free energy. I think we probably are going to destroy ourselves. And yes, I want to reveal as much as I have to get the truth about the plane and those videos to the world without, or let's just say, minimizing the damage to national security. Because the truth is, revealing information about those orbs in that video, it hurts national security. It lets other countries catch up. And it's not necessarily Russia and China I'm worried about. They already know those videos are real. They've probably already been working on the orbs for the last 10 years. I'm more worried about the countries like Iran or North Korea, the smaller countries that probably didn't realize those videos were real. And now those videos give them an opportunity to ditch all their complete obsolete stuff they were working on related to nukes and now move on to something that's much possibly easier to make and much, much, much more dangerous. So that's what I think about in the back of my head related to it. And the reason why I love the Gorgon Stair revelation is that thousands of people have probably seen Gorgon Stair. Way more people than I expect, that I previously thought, know those videos are real because they've seen Gorgon Stair footage. And so the moment I realized that Sierra Nevada Corporation is basically the Lockheed Martin of illegal spy surveillance, so that they're the ones who built Gorgon Stair and integrate it, meaning that they take all the sensor stuff and they build that video playback thing we were looking at, I realized, holy crap, they're implicated. They're dead to rights implicated. I mean, my normal job as a database architect, I know all about databases. I would be completely blown away and surprised if that data is not flowing directly through their servers. And if so, that's just straight up incriminating, super illegal right there. So the Gorgon Stair revelation then is massive, because it means now that we have a thread that we can pull to find the answers to all these different questions about, you know, what the orbs are. And I don't even necessarily even need to now find out what the orbs are, because Sierra Nevada Corporation can fall over and fall on the sword, and they won't, but in theory, they could come out and say, yes, that's Gorgon Stair footage, and that would prove everything, right? So now I don't need Edward Lin anymore either, the guy that leaked the videos, and don't even necessarily need to prove how the orbs work or that they're free energy or that they can teleport stuff. Now, I still want to do that, and I'm probably still going to do that because it's fun, but I, don't have to necessarily.
And are you
So for
looking
those
into
that don't know,
are you looking into anybody at Sierra Nevada Corporation right now? And if so, who?
That was like the scariest. I don't know if I wanted to, lower my life expectancy anymore, but yeah, like the owners, I mean, right. Once I realized it was a private corporation and not public, which I probably should have known right off the bat that it was going to be private. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. This is definitely the type of people that have their own private military contract security forces, that probably have, let's say, ambiguous morals. And I was like, okay, maybe I should just be a little more cautious about how I, go at them. But the owner, Erin Osman and her husband, Faith, what I realized too is like, what's the answer to Elon Musk's question about why do the defense contractors, if they have this anti-gravity tech, if they have this UFO tech, why are they not just beating SpaceX? Why are they not the richest people on Earth? Well, the answer is kind of obvious, isn't it? They don't want to be the richest people on Earth. That draws attention to them. They don't want to be Elon Musk. $5 billion is what Erin Osman's worth. Her husband's probably also worth another $5 billion. That's enough money to do whatever you want on this planet. You don't need to be worth 500 billion So, I start to realize that, and then I start to realize the incestuous relationship. Like, for example, the literal JSOC commander, when MH370 happened, possibly the guy that's responsible for the operation, is it Jim Vodal, General Vodal? He's actually an advisor for Sierra Nevada Corporation right now. It's in the Wikipedia page for him. So the moment I just start looking up, like, who are the head people in charge of SOCOM, Admiral William McRaven, and then look up who is head of JSOC, and you find, Vodal. It's like Joseph Vodal. I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I couldn't be painting a bigger target over the top of my head. So I'm giving them a brief reprieve for now, but we're certainly not done with that.
Maze, what were you going to say?
Oh, and just to add on, because I think what I'm realizing is, like, we can find out some, like, even more people and by the way, people started sending me, like, way more people to look into, people that were connected, like the guy that's current ISR, which is, surveillance capabilities at Sierra Nevada Corporation. I'm really trying to be careful about which people I try to target, because there's a lot of innocent people involved in all this, right? We got to keep in mind that. But there are certainly some of these people who absolutely know they're in the swamp. They know that there's illegal operations happening. They know the data is flowing through servers. And, like, the president, CEO, and owner, Erin Osman, she, of course, knows. I mean, she's built the company from the ground up. So whatever backroom deals they were doing, she knows all about it. But then you also realize, like, this is too big to fail situation, right? This is too big to fail situation. There's no chance the government's going to let that company get exposed. There's no chance they're going to let any of that stuff happen. So that's where I'm like, okay, well, then you have to kind of pump the brakes for a second and go, what are we really trying to accomplish here, right? What is this really about? It's not about trying to Thelma and Louise drive off the edge as fast as we can. It's about raising people's awareness and then hopefully getting answers for, MH370.
So I didn't know, I guess it's new news to me, but about Gorgon Stare, that those videos, so the videos that you have, sorry, my phone is just the videos that you have, that was confirmed to be their surveillance system.
I'll put it like this. So not only did we search, or I search and narrow it down to it had to be Gorgon Stare with Argus. Sorry, I keep getting those confused. With Argus. In fact, I think we may be looking at Argus IR, which was a DARPA project for nighttime surveillance specifically, that there was no information beyond that really released afterwards. I think we might be looking at that specific version of it. It's really hard to tell without knowing how that's all set up. But so I went from like 99% confidence to 99.999% when Drew Ponder actually ran the videos through a chat GPT, and he found even more details. I thought it was just the mouse that had a different frame rate from the background. But actually, the AI could tell that we were actually looking at a real system that is not just a screen recording. Like, we're actually looking at the whammy system with the screen pop up, because the way the whammy system works is you have this big, huge field of view. Imagine seeing a city, and you click somewhere, and now you have a window pop up that's super zoomed in. And so you have this zoomed in window, and that's what we're looking at. And then the window can move around to track the object. And the other thing that was the big giveaway was that you could see the coordinates were updating at a faster rate than the background. So we were looking at a whole overlay. We were looking at a whole software system that's been built for viewing that footage. And we found enough information. Some people are trying to cast doubt on whether or not they have the right frame rate, 6 frames per second. But we did find a source that says that the infrared goes at around 5 frames per second, which is extremely close to where we're at. And then for me, the real kicker was, once I realized that, first thing I did was start searching through my old tweets for Gorgon Stare. Who was talking about Gorgon Stare in my old tweets? I found several sources, and one of them had worked at China Lake, which is where they tested all the drones, all the surveillance stuff. And they said, I've seen like every version, no question, that's Gorgon Stare. They didn't tell me exactly which version, but presumably it's the one we've been pinpointing. And we talked about some other stuff as well. And they're the ones that kind of got me onto the Lightning G4 pod as being the potential camera for the other one, which I'm not 100% convinced on, but pretty confident on. And they also sent me some other information, including some pictures and stuff like that. So yeah, I think they're very high confidence in the credibility of that information. And then I also found some old conversations I had with a previous source from like over a year ago. Somebody that reached out to me that was credible, that I don't have conversations with a lot of people, but unless they come to me and they're like, hey, I'm so-and-so in the Air Force, blah, 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 and they're very transparent. And the conversation, I didn't understand the context at the time, but I felt like it was important to save on my phone. And I was looking for the Marco Rubio email that I mentioned, and I saw this image and I went, oh, I remember that. And I read the context, and I posted it on Twitter somewhere. I'm paraphrasing, but the context was basically, I showed this to my Air Force sources, and they tell me that is drone footage, but it's an older version. That was the context. And I went, holy shit. I remembered at the time when they sent me that, I didn't understand what they meant. And I actually stopped talking to them because I thought I was getting fed disinformation or something. And now,
Well, they're the only ones that are thermal and with thermal infrared capabilities on the drones, right? I
no,
think like
so the
that's
big thing is this, is that the Air Force is the one that had like the best whammy. What we're looking at is like, it seems from my research, the best whammy footage out there. And that's why it has to be this one. It's like the most cutting edge one out there. So that footage being this whammy capability is this big rub. And then I had one source already that worked at China Lake where they tested this, saying, yep, that's Gorgon Stare. And then I find this old image saying that they had contacted several Air Force sources, and this Gorgon Stare is made by the Air Force. And that, yes, that's an older version, exactly what we are now speculating. So to me, that's extremely strong evidence. And then, of course, if you go look in the replies, you'll see several other people saying, I told you it was Gorgon Stare. I told you it was Gorgon Stare. Some, and I probably should have realized that. Oh, one other thing I want to point out is a shout out to John Ramirez. John Ramirez, his first tweet on Twitter was pointing out that USA 229 satellite pair that I had been saying must be producing satellite video didn't have any sensors that could be producing footage like that. Wow, that's a weird first tweet by John Ramirez. And I find John Ramirez, personally, I find him credible. I know a lot of people don't necessarily, but I do. I find him very credible. And that also
GS-15
gave me pause.
CIA, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, I consider him one of the white hats, the way he talks, the way he's forthcoming with information. He feels like a guy he might be mixing some stuff in there, but so when he said that, I had also pieced together this other stuff. I went, okay, yeah, I've just been making a major mistake, which is assuming that it's satellite video just because it's called satellite video. And I had already realized that NROL-22, I was already saying that NROL-22 is a relay satellite. We had already figured that out. So the only thing holding back it being a drone video was just the misconception and the idea of how far away, how low to the ground, how the altitude of that plane in that video. And so, yeah, once it all came together. And so now this is the part where the reason why I'm pressing Ross, guys, is not personal. The reason why I'm pressing him is because I know he has the sources that can confirm that. I know he does. He's connected to all those guys. They have Air Forces. And here's the thing. When I realized that basically anybody in the Air Force who has seen Gorgon Stare over the last 10 years is going to know that's video is real, I realized like we are in such a dominant position right now that I can press basically anyone, because it should be very trivial to confirm, the way that I had two sources confirm it. I mean, these guys should easily be able to confirm. So anyone who's not confirming it, really suspicious to me, especially if they have the sources that could. And, and at the very minimum, you would reach out to your Air Force contact hypothetically, and they're just going to ghost you. They're not going to say anything about it because they're going to know they can't. And then that should give people pause. So when I don't see that and instead see people bringing up old debunks about the VFX stuff and what have you, that's where I'm going, smells a little bit like disinformation. They're kind of ignoring the main big point here, which is that's Gorgon Stare. And the reason why they can't admit that too is that if they have to admit that that's Gorgon Stare, remember when they said there were cloud photos on the internet and that somebody used the cloud photos on the internet to make that video? Well, nobody used cloud photos on the internet to make Gorgon Stare. And hey, they were right. By the way, guys, those cloud photos, they do 100% match the video. Those clouds match the videos. Absolutely. So either someone used those clouds to make the videos, or someone took the whammy, which actually uses real photos to make whammy video that we were looking at, and planted them on the internet. Only one of those two things is possible. You guys know which one I've been saying is true. So it may turn out, if they were to have to admit that that's Gorgon Stare, they have to admit that somebody with malintent in 2016 or before planted Gorgon Stare whammy footage on a textures.com website so that in the future they could use it to discredit the videos. Damn. So this is why I say, guys, if those videos are real, it exposes a lot of stuff. It exposes the disinformation apparatus that's used to hide it. A lot of people aren't willing to believe that the CIA or intelligence communities would plant cloud images on a third party, somebody's, website out there. Oh, they'll do it. They'll do more than that too.
Damn, I didn't even think about that. Okay, well, let me just take a moment. I just wanted to reset the space and welcome everybody here, guys. It's 10:30 p.m. here on the East Coast. We have legendary Ashton Forbes, who's doing the investigation into the missing Malaysian airline flight MH370. I would say that he's bringing attention to one of the most suspiciously buried aviation mysteries in modern history. He's exposing all of the potential black ops projects and the conscious theories and EM plasma tech and I think that there's so much more. Like, even though maybe that was your motivation, what you're uncovering is like the vast amount of pros and cons that comes with this. Like, for just as much as we look at 0 point energy and as it being something that's liberating, we also realize that the flip side of the coin is that like, they could literally teleport nukes anywhere they want. There wouldn't even be that, I don't know, 8-minute delay. I mean, it's crazy to explore all of this stuff that this opens us up to. But yeah, guys, I want you to please make sure that you're also following Augustus, because he has these amazing spaces. He has these amazing guests that he brings usually every Wednesday. He has a space every Wednesday. And so you can always look for a great, amazing space. And usually it's around like 3 p.m., but sometimes it varies depending on who he's having on. But he's always having amazing guests, such as, who all did you have? You had, it was Avi Loeb. You had that gentleman who went into the Vatican. We have Ashton. You've had,
That blonde reporter girl,
Laura Logan.
yeah,
Laura
Laura
Logan. Yes.
Logan,
Yeah,
Dr. Robert Malone. So
Dr.
make
Robert
sure you're
Malone. Yeah,
following him.
yeah, and I'm in talks right now with Matt Gaetz and
And Dustin.
General Michael Flynn. Um,
Amazing.
so hopefully we could get those guys on the show. But yeah, the topics vary. Everything from UFO stuff to political stuff and anything in between. Anything that I'm really interested in, I try to seek out subject matter experts like Ashton on the topic. So just want to say thank you again tonight for you joining us, Ashton. You're the best. And it's really cool to see you interact with people like Chris, people like Eric. Like, I don't think people get that anywhere on this app. So you really make it a good time. And thank you, Dustin and Maze, for co-hosting with me. I've known Maze now for 5 years, and I've known Dustin for like 2 or 3. And she actually introduced Dustin and I, and we've got a podcast every Monday and Thursday called Tinfoil and Tokens. So would love to have you come on that show, Ashton. I think Dustin's going to hit you up about that if possible. But it's a great turnout. We get around like 10,000 people tune in every week, twice a week. So much bigger audience than the next space. But yeah, we've got a new speaker on stage, the lovely Dr. Uh,
Roshan.
Roshanak. I've known her from
Augustus, if you
Clubhouse.
don't remember how to say my name, I swear to God.
Yeah, I've known her from Clubhouse for quite some time. And if you guys aren't familiar with Preservation of the Human Race already, it's a group I started on Clubhouse. It reached around 100,000 followers, and then I gave it over to my friend Disco Dave to be in charge of, and now I'm just doing Preservation of the Human Race here on X personally on Wednesdays. So please tune in at next Wednesday. Don't know who my guest is yet, but I promise you it will be awesome. And if you give me a follow, you'll be able to see who it is before a couple days before I'll put out a promo flyer, just with the special guest's face, their name, and the time. But yeah, Doctor, do you want to ask Ashton any questions? Do you want to say anything? Sorry to have left you hanging for this whole time.
No, it's great. I was just thrilled to see you and Preservation of the Human Race here. Um, you have a large audience here, and some of them won't know you. So anybody who doesn't know Augustus, he is incredible. He's consistent. He researches. His heart and soul is in this. He's got a brilliant mind. And so I saw this and I was thrilled. And I was exhausted, but when I saw that you were here with Preservation of the Human Race, and thanks to Maze for that, I jumped in, and because of that, I've been learning so much. So, it's just always such a treat to be in a space with you, to listen to the conversations that you run. Ashton, you're amazing. I started following you as soon as I started listening to you talk. And interestingly, that of BCI at DARPA was my old lab chief. So there's that. So I'm really enjoying this, and I don't want to stop the flow. I think all of us are benefiting tremendously from this space. So thank you very, very much for this.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, what I'll say is,
Because, one last thing is that so many people are having spaces, and they're garbage. They're conspiracy. They're not research.
Hey,
They're
not
people
too
who
much
just
on
want face
conspiracies,
time.
Dr. Roshanek. Okay.
Yeah, well, no, but I'm saying like in a bad way, not in a good way, not in a way that's informative, not in a way that's supportive, not in a way that's well researched. So having a place that you can trust to come in and get information from trusted sources, from people who are intelligent and well researched and experienced, that's priceless. So just have to add that in. Thank you so much.
yeah, thanks. I think it's kind of crazy that we're at the point now where we're just like unironically getting trusted information now from like, Twitter spaces and social media and podcasts more than we get it from mainstream media. And it's just, nobody even bats an eye at it anymore. No one even laughs. It's not even a joke. No laugh track. I guess one thing I want to kind of go round back to is like the why. I think the reality of the situation with the plane is there's not going to be a good reason why. We're not going to get an answer that we're happy with from the public perspective. That's why they're hiding it. That's why they're hiding all this stuff, is that they know there isn't a good answer. It's if you look back at like my kind of back and forth with Robert J. O'Neill, I think that's the dark part of it, is that things, people in government that we empower to keep us safe are doing the hard things that we can't bear, that we can't stomach. The analogy I would use would be like the same way where we don't go to the slaughterhouses to figure out how the food gets to the table, and if you had to bear that every day, would you be able to? I think it's kind of the same thing happening with kind of covert operations. The things that we're doing to maintain technological and military supremacy of the planet are the kind of moral gray areas that the public's not really ready to accept. And I think that's what we're going to find with MH370. Although I do hope that there is an answer that is palatable, that is understandable in the end. And then I think this goes to another point, which is maybe an area we want to broach, which is, especially in the UFO topic right now, there is this idea of these amendments that have been going out for UFO disclosure amendments, which include provisions for amnesty, so that there would be some incentive for the defense contractors to tell the truth. But if you look at those videos, I think the orbs personally are Lockheed Martin technology, but I don't know how we would prove it. They're never going to admit that. No way, not in a million years. And I'm not sure they'll even do it with amnesty, because they know that even with amnesty, the public is not going to accept. If something like that comes out and it turns out, they really are hiding free energy stuff, it doesn't matter how much amnesty you give them. People are going to be demanding people's heads, and they know that as well. And I agree, no amnesty. Absolutely no amnesty. They had their chance. They should have signed that amnesty bill when they had it before. Now that I know personally that they're hiding teleportation technology and perfect fusion, and that all these fusion reactors are going to be a scam that they're putting out, There ain't no amnesty whatsoever. These people have had, I don't even know, probably decades to tell the truth about this, and they haven't been. So now that we're finally figuring it out, now that we're finally getting somewhere in this, but now we're going to give them amnesty when we're at the finish line? Heck no. Heck no. They should be begging us not to. They should be groveling that they had to do these horrible things that we're not going to be able to accept because, I don't know, let's just say they'll say if we told you about this technology, the planet would have been destroyed. You know, they're going to say something like that.
They'll never. So to Dustin's point, I think that there's just that line where, I mean, many people will slow down almost to a halt because, when you cross that line, you become a target. And until people, I mean, I think there would have to be a certain threshold of people that are kind of demanding that level of transparency about technology. And even then, I think we would still get just a little bit more of a derivative of it, but there's that line that it becomes like they have unlimited power, money, and pretty much the means to do whatever. Hell, we're talking about teleporting a whole plane. What can they do to a person? So, it's kind of that point that I think you might even have approached to the, like, you're convinced. I think you've are now focusing on why, which I noticed has been the theme of tonight's show, has really kind of been around why. And the reason is because I think that it's within you've satiated your validation of this, like you know what's up. And I think that now it's kind of circling around, like, why would they do this? I mean, what would it come down to for them to do something so extreme? And that is kind of sometimes where I want to take a blue pill for the weekend. It's like you reach that point, it's like, okay, this is too much. But one of the things also, really quickly, Ashton, I'm curious to get your take on, is that we're seeing a political environment being created, I think, with some of the people that are a part of the Trump administration, especially even Elon, right? Like with him advancing a lot of, there was something with SpaceX that recently, I think the Golden Dome and all types of government contracts that Elon has, and Peter Thiel with his, surveillance in his
Oh yeah, you guys want
data.
to talk about where they're going now with this stuff?
Yeah, like I think that whole time space spiel, if you guys listen to that entire speech, which I actually read it even live on Space. Matter of fact, you popped into my space that day. It was Israel space, but you popped in there. And yeah, I think that that whole entire speech was really around not slowing down the pace at which, we're advancing technology, but in fact trying to speed it up, lifting all the restrictions and the regulatory measures that are in place right now to kind of take it, I don't know, I guess making sure that they have enough time to really think through things, but they want to have a completely restriction free time. I think it's 8 years where whatever they want to advance as quickly as possible, they're saying would be in our best interest. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, what's the big thing now? Big thing now is AI. Everything's basically, our entire society is almost based on AI now. Look at how XAI bought Twitter. Like Elon Musk's AI bought Twitter, and it was worth more than Twitter was worth. And now it's all about how much energy AI is using. So I think we're kind of seeing a delayed glimpse behind the curtain. We're seeing what happened with the military industrial complex potentially decades ago. They had AI before us. Of course they did. So they were like, now we're hitting this singularity. They already potentially hit that singularity in the past. And it's then going to be a balancing act where you need this vastly increased amount of energy to how to run the processing required for AI. But we also want to drip this technology, this potentially limitless free energy technology, in a way that it doesn't all come out at once. So they have this balancing act of, I mean, look at the Department of Energy's Twitter has been popping off about American energy dominance and independence. So I think we are seeing this shift towards that, but they just have to be very careful about how to get that out. Now, if you're somebody like us, we can exploit that. We can exploit that, and we can point out where they are intentionally, gimping the scientific discoveries or suppressing them. And that points to what Kratsios was saying, is that we, intentionally kind of held ourselves back. And I think we still are doing that. So for the people that wonder, okay, if you're just saying this, what should I be looking for? First thing you should be looking for is the EM drive. Remember that impossible drive they said couldn't work? Well, a guy from NASA tested it back in 2015, and he found anomalous thrust. His name is Sonny White. He was just on Joe Rogan last week. So I think he would disagree that it didn't work. And there were several other tests, and other people have been making versions of that EM drive. In fact, one was supposed to be tested last year and mysteriously just lost contact, no results. But other more different models are supposed to happen this year as well. That would be one of the first things I would be looking for. And then I would be looking real hard at what Sonny White, speak of the devil, showed on Joe Rogan, the free energy microchip. The free energy microchip is what he showed Joe Rogan. He never even said it was a free energy microchip. He just says that, oh, it's just a microchip that produces a voltage. From what? Oh, from the quantum fluctuation. Where are the quantum fluctuations? Oh, just invisible. So it's basically a free energy microchip. Yes, that's what it is. And he even said we could potentially scale it up, sounds like pretty soon, to a point where you could put it in your phone and your phone never runs out of energy, ever again. That's what I'm looking for. In fact, that if you guys have been watching my content, I've been saying that's literally the thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to steal the Casimir cavity patent, which is the same thing, but Garrett Model from University of Colorado and Bernard Haish have been working on a different variant of the same exact idea. And theirs expires next year. So my plan was I'm going to do that, see if anybody can help advance it, make it better. Maybe those guys will even collaborate. Who knows? That's what's like, I think in the live stream today, I asked people, when do you think that's going to become a reality? And we might be looking at 5 years from now or less. That's what most people thought. And I could see it, or I could see something being announced in 5 years. It's going to come quicker than we expect, I think. So kind of round it back out. I think we're hitting this singularity where they know it can't be kind of kept hidden much longer. And they're just trying to control the dam as it's breaking and more stuff's kind of flooding out.
It's crazy to when like the science and how this whole quantum mechanics, and anybody that has a question, feel free to just chime in. I'm like, I can literally geek out with Ashton 24 hours nonstop. So
well, I'll give you one. I love, because I mean these are the things I think about too, and this is why I also love this too, is that I love thinking about the crazy edges of physics, science, even the alien and UFO phenomenon too. I'm not into the normie stuff. Like you guys, like I'm not a little gray alien kind of person. I'm a more like super hive mind AI secretly controlling our reality kind of weird stuff type person. And so, but that is one of the things I would think of, is that when you see this dominance of AI, this growth of AI, and you see how fast it's come, we're just 10 years into AI and it's getting to the point where it's just scary good. You realize like AI is going to far surpass us in our lifetimes. And then you have to wonder, is there already an AI superintelligence? Has the military already produced an AI superintelligence? So where's this technology all going? How does this all come together? Well, look at that Gorgon stare. Go look at the Argus video, their promotional Argus video that they released in 2018 that doesn't show the classified capabilities. They're literally tracking everyone all the time with AI, every single person. Like the same way where your phone will figure out where your home is and be like, "You want to go back home now?" You're like, "Wait, how do you know where my home is?" Because it's following you on GPS and is building patterns of, and it doesn't even need to know what your name is or who you are. It can build a pattern for your identity profile. And now you're just number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the system. And the AI tracks all your data forever, and they save that forever. And I mean, think about the implications of that. And now, even recently, if you guys Google Astris, Lockheed Martin's AI, they already activated Skynet. Skynet's active, and it's literally giving them battle plans and tactical advice. So now if you look back at the MH370 videos in this context, and we're definitely seeing at least AI navigation system with those orbs, you really start to wonder, like, and this is me just on a complete hypothetical here, but is there an edge case where there's no human involved at all, and that the drones are being managed by AI also, and that the AI decided that the plane was a target because of a algorithm that it ran and determined based on people that were in it, and that the acceptable rates of casualties? And even if you think that's a wild theory, like, are we entering a world where that type of thing becomes possible? Are we in that world right now, today, where everything everyone does is tracked and the AI is determining threat ratings for everybody? And if you achieve a certain threshold, or people you're next to achieve a certain threshold, the AI will just send a drone and wipe you out.
Well, damn, that's definitely okay. So I will say
Oh, damn.
we've been talking about this, the digital ID and the sentient world simulation. It's literally a digital twin of the entire planet, right? And everything in it. I mean, there's sensors all over nature. This is fact. I'll separate like what I speculate, but these are things that are already in place. And they're I here's my speculation is that they're going to move into currency being natural resources. They're going to like, right, they came up with a price per carbon unit, right? And they're doing the same with hydrogen, and eventually it's kind of moving in that direction. And yes, everything that you said about this digital twin of the planet knows where everything is right now in real time. They can literally turn on sections, and that's why they're moving into the whole smart city thing now. What I do think we will probably see in our lifetime with what you said, is not necessarily like a drone coming and taking you out, but let's just say, if you have a credit, let's just say you have a social score of like 6 and I have a social score of 3. And this auto driving vehicle has to make a turn to the left or the right, and it's going to hit you or it's going to hit me, it would probably use that score to decide which one is less valuable, right? Like stuff like that. And I know
So
that's an extreme example.
wait, so
What do you think, Dustin?
well, listen, one of the things that we've thought about a lot since the East Palestine train derailment, I think that the Aladdin AI that BlackRock has is absolutely capable of figuring out the cheapest way to acquire whatever it is they're looking for through things like this. And so like one of my biggest fears, I think that there has been, I think the AI has been around for a lot longer than we realized, and probably programs a lot of our reality, and in ways that I don't think we've really fully wrapped our head around, as far as how much of our reality could be programmed by this stuff. The other thing that
Like topical inserts type of program?
no, I'm talking like down to why when you woke up today, is it whatever the day of the week is? It's day Tuesday, Wednesday,
It's
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Well, do you guys see Westworld, late seasons of Westworld? I mean, that was basically what it was about, right? The AI was managing our reality entirely, to the degree where the humans didn't even know that the AI is managing the reality. Is that just because we're all we're just basically wake up, we do our job, and who's really at the top? You never really see all that. Why does everything function the way it is? I mean, I think it was already
Uh,
always being managed, even if it wasn't by an AI. They were managing it by telling us what to think, by controlling what shows on the media, right? Go ahead, Dustin.
one of the things that's like really screwed with my head over the years, right, is that I wanted to fix some things through politics. And what I found at the top of politics was not a single person who understand the complexity of the system that they were supposedly managing, right? And an example would be, you will not find a tax attorney who will tell you that they have a full comprehension of just tax law. Now imagine the millions of pages of legal code that make up our system. No human intellect is capable of managing it, of processing it. I can tell you right now, the members of Congress overwhelmingly aren't paying attention to, like, right, what's in the laws that they're passing and the continuing resolutions and omnibus spending bills. So then the question becomes, if the system's too complex for human intellect, then where was it designed and how is it nurtured? And do we even have a say at all in its manifestations, like on us? And that to me, when I dug into the government, I was almost shell shocked to learn that like it really is beyond the intellect of anybody.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think that here's the thing. Part of the reason why the academics haven't figured it out. Another thing that Professor Loeb, Avi Loeb, mentioned too is people would have figured it out. It takes a mixture of science knowledge. I think it's probably mostly electrical engineering, Tesla science, mixed with physics, of course, to understand the theory, and then a sprinkle of chemistry as well is required. And I think for any one person to have all of that knowledge, and then also then to be open-minded enough that what they're being taught isn't all that there is, and then to also have the ambition to come out with it, it really narrows it down to a very small number of people. And this is kind of what Tom Bearden said, is that why are there not more people making free energy devices? Because all the people that know how to make free energy devices are already well compensated and being bought and paid by the defense contractors. Is that they don't even really have to actively seek them. Is that it's like you find someone that's just awakened and you go, oh, that person's awake. Okay, grab them, bring them in, give them a good deal. And I think that's part of the reason why they're able to do it. One of the things, actually, I want to address real quick a question from the chat. People ask me about remote viewing and stuff like that. I have seen some of the stuff people have done on remote viewing on MH370, but one of the things I've harped on repeatedly, guys, this is an information war. If I were to talk about remote viewing in any context, they're going to attack me and use it. I'm open to the idea of remote viewing. Of course I am, because 0 point energy answers that. If you can teleport something, you could theoretically, remote view something in the right conditions. So, but for any, and it's not just remote viewing, but anything that's like esoteric based is generally not going to be evidence that I'm going to use for the official investigation. It's fun to think about. So hopefully that answers that question for people. But back to the AI thing, my counter question for Dustin and maybe the rest of the people on the panel in the chat would be, do we really think that biological human life is going to be superior to AI life or AI or inorganic life in the long run? Like right now, we could argue that, well, we're smarter than the AI. I can beat the AI at a game of chess, like probably every single time. But how long is that going to last for? Like 5 years? Like a year? 100 years? Who knows? Well, what if it turns out that maybe the answer to the alien thing, the alien phenomenon, is that it's weirder than just, oh, well, there's all these different physical, organic aliens out there. What if it's more bizarre? What if there's plasma entities? What if, like, there can be super intelligences that are AI based, or at least started as AI based, but became something even more advanced than that? That seems like it would be way superior than a physical body, a biological body in this universe. So for me, I think I won't be surprised. And this is one of the things that I kind of think Avi brings up a really good point, where he's clearly a smart man that is like clearly thinking about the implications of this stuff. Is that what if organic or inorganic, like AI life, seeds biological life, almost like an experiment. And now we're something different. We're computers, but we're biological computers. I don't know. What are your thoughts
Oh,
on
so this is one of my favorite of all time, like, conversation topics, right? And
Here
I
we
love
go.
that whenever we dive into physics, this is inevitably like kind of where the conversation has to steer to. My concern is that, right, there's almost like a simulation inception. Right, I kind of describe similar to Fermi's paradox that kind of happens, which is is our own sense of wanting to control everything around us pushing us to create a simulation, and then inside that simulation we find other flaws, right, and our own desire to craft and control everything around us lead us to create a simulation inside the simulation, and at each level does it upgrade or degrade, right? Does the experience Like let's say we all uploaded ourselves into this new simulation because we were going to cure all kinds of the things that we find unpleasant about our current state of reality. Do we lose stuff along the way, or do we gain stuff? And my answer, this is why I'm very grateful to have a grounding in faith that, right, I believe that each time you go down further down like my inception, my simulation inception explanation here, I think you actually degrade because you're taking yourself further away from God. And
That's interesting.
right, in an attempt to cheat death and to control your own universe. And I always go back to like one passage in particular, right, in Revelation, that they will seek death and be unable to find it, and essentially denying themselves whatever God has planned for us next because of the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, you're into this. You're into my jam right now, because there's this show that I watched that shook me, and I watched it after I've been doing this stuff, which was called Pantheon. It's this actually animated show that I guess was on cable TV. Didn't get a lot of views, but now it's on Netflix, and you guys should watch it if you can watch animated shows. It's good though. It goes through this idea of what will it look like when we hit the singularity, and how quickly will people begin to just upload themselves to the cloud, and what would that social experiment kind of look like. And it presents this argument that it's going to happen rapidly, so rapidly that like people are going to be uploading themselves to the cloud, and the people that are left behind are going to be like ostracized because they're in inferior biological bodies. And then what's the answer at the end? Spoiler alert. Exactly what you just said. Simulations within simulations within simulations forever. I mean, that's the ultimate conclusion of that train of thought, is that, if you achieve this AI life form that lasts forever, you can make your own universe, and you could have infinite simulations, and all those simulations, why are they real or not real? They're no less real than this one is, which I think is, pretty profound, like you said, and brings up the question really of what is the reason for death at all? Why do we die? And do we really go away when we die, or do we not? So those are the reasons
So
why I became more spiritual, to your point. Go ahead.
yeah, so for the longest time, right, if I ever stopped doing all the crazy stuff that I do in real life, right, if I ever had time to sit down and write a book, it would be, right, I don't care if somebody steals it, just like make it good, right? But like there's going to be somebody who's the last person to die, right? With the advancement of technology and the ability to like upload yourself, imagine the social pressure around that one stubborn mofo who's like, nope, nope, I'm not scared. I'm going to, right? I'm going to be like, just imagine there would be, right, like almost universal attention paid to whoever this like literally the last person to die is. I've always thought it'd be a great concept
Oh, it's
for a
good.
book
Or
or a
imagine
show.
just the drama between, imagine you and your wife. Like, imagine we hit this singularity, and you and your significant other, one of you wants to upload yourself and go along with the technological advancement, live forever. But the other one doesn't want to, right? The other one believes, no, like you just said, that the idea of the mortal life and is, being closer to God or whatever you want. You could see how there will become like a very serious political implications of all of this stuff happening. I mean, can we just allow everybody to just go upload themselves to the clouds and leave their physical bodies behind? And yeah, we're getting kind of out there, but I do think these are, theory things and that we should be considering for the long run. But really what we are talking about, and why this is important, why this relates to a missing plane, is the idea of free energy. And one thing I'm absolutely confident about is that the plasma orbs in those videos, they're not just simple illusions. I do know that the Navy and what have you has produced this, talking plasmas and what have you, which are incredible. And they can produce, plasmas that can be used for, intercepting missiles or producing spoofs on radars. But those plasmas in the MH370 videos are not that. Those are actual physical solid objects. And so if those things are solid objects, they are actually like, where's their energy coming from? It must be an onboard system. And the more you look into those plasmas, you realize that those are fusion that are producing coefficients of performance or Q factors that are over 1. It's doing fusion like what we're trying to do in our fusion reactors, but way better. Not only is it more efficiently producing more like input versus output, much higher output, but also there's no confinement. There's no metal thing around that ball of plasma. Nothing confining. That's one of the biggest things they struggle with, because it eats away. The plasma eats away at the confinement. So they can run these reactors, but they can only run them for a very, very short period of time. So those orbs represent a breakthrough in energy technology that is so massive that it will end scarcity on planet Earth. It's not just free energy, as in literally like, energy costing almost nothing. I mean, that's not exactly how it would work out, but you guys get it. Energy would get very, very cheap. But also, fusion produces transmutation. So we're actually in a situation where you can produce whatever element you want if you can engineer fusion to the level that those orbs represent in that video. And that means that Star Trek replicators are either in our future or maybe in our past, but definitely possible. And then the question is, just like the big question about the AI thing we were just talking about, what is our social economy even look like in a situation where we have free energy and no scarcity whatsoever, where everybody has a Star Trek replicator, to simplify it?
We could talk about this for hours. Augustus did text me, like it's past his old man bedtime, and so we are. Maze, I'll let you go. Ashton, I'd love to like dive in specifically on this more esoteric stuff. Like, if you want to do video format, let me know. I'll hit you up. I've been meaning to do it anyway. I just, how
Yeah, we'll do
disorganized.
something. And I see
Y'all
But
just
Ian in
got
the
me
chat.
all like, I don't, how are we supposed to just leave this conversation like this? Like, I don't even know what to do, Dustin. I mean, y'all can't leave me out of that conversation. That's all I know. I'm just saying.
well, listen, if you want to keep it going, I'm down. Like, this is more interesting to me than anything I'm gonna watch on TV. Although, Ashton, you mentioned a show, and I didn't catch the name. You said it was animated, that like touches
Oh,
some of this stuff that
Pantheon. Pantheon. Yeah, it's on Netflix. Pantheon. Yeah, I mean, if you want to really, so yeah, that's actually the best thing. If you're one of those people who's like, I can't stop thinking about this conversation tonight, flip that on. You got to stomach through maybe 1 or 2 episodes. It takes off pretty quick from that point, though, and really escalates. The stakes escalate a lot, and it really delves into these moral questions. Where if you're somebody that thinks this is all fake, you probably think that show's stupid as hell. You probably think it's absurd. But if you're somebody that knows this stuff's legit and you watch that show, you go, holy shit, this is our future. This is our future right here in this show. I'm watching it play out.
All right, so I'm gonna end it with this though. So like I've been scolding people lately who are sending me, right, like the AI breakdowns of whatever, like even like even people who work for me, like, oh, I just asked ChatGPT. One thing that we have learned is that things that we hand over to machines or technology atrophy in us. And like just think about your ability to navigate without a GPS. And so giving our critical thinking and creativity over on a bunch of stuff to the machines, like I also fear about the atrophy of our intellect and critical thinking, because like we've basically subcontracted it to AI. And I don't think we get stories like yours, Ashton, if we give those things up and we allow those skills and muscles to atrophy. I don't think we lose the ability to do the kind of like deep dive investigations, like multi-year that you've done that you had to. And just to wrap, like, dude, you've had to, in order to understand what you saw on an internet video, you've had to go learn about quantum physics from some of the best minds in the world. You've had to come to understand the interplay, like in intelligence community, black budget operations. You've had to learn to navigate the psychological operations to discredit and distance like and hide information. I mean, this as like a total package, man. I can't wait for the Netflix series on like your like the Ashton Forbes MH370. Like, actually, dude, we gotta pitch that to some like my show people. I bet we could. Like, I'm looking forward to watching that particular Netflix series.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it too. Yeah, it's been a good conversation.
Yeah,
Thanks for listening.
Ashton. I was the creative director for RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign, and I've been doing creative direction for like 10 years. I specialize in video, um, branding, graphics, and web development. And if there was any kind of content that you would ever want to make, like a documentary or a mini docu series, I could definitely produce that for you, and would love to talk to you more about that in the back channel.
Yeah, we can back channel that. Yeah, I mean, and just being honest, like the more the stakes are just so crazy in a situation like this, and I understand why. Like a lot of people out there don't believe it's real, can never believe it's real. But if you just assume that it does for a second, and you realize what the stakes are, it's really hard to figure out where the good and the bad is, who the right and the wrong is, and a lot of the stuff as well. And so for me, my most important thing has just been for me to understand it, I guess. And that's why I haven't really sold nothing, never done a book or what have you, never done any of my own shows or produced anything like that. And I also have wanted to know the answer before we do something like that. So I really do hope that we get to that before we ever do something. But to be honest with you, it's been incredible being along with it. So thank all of you guys, honestly, because I'm going to be watching the show about this myself, because it's just, who knows what's going to happen next. I mean, it's been wild.
Awesome. Well, yo, I hope you have a blessed night, bro. Thank you again so much for your time. You've been here for 2 hours going strong. I feel like you could go another 2 or 3, but I can't keep up. You're too good. You're too good to us. Appreciate it. Yo, Maze wanted to say something. Go ahead, Maze.
Yeah, I won't be long. I know you're an old man now. You're married. You got to get to bed. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah,
tell wifey I said hello.
I will.
I just, just so I really am an optimist, and I want to say this because these thought-provoking conversations, being able to step out of the boxes that we've been so conditioned to think in, is extremely important, because when you reclaim your imagination, you can imagine the future. You don't have to watch it on a show that was created by people who might see it in a certain way. And just understanding, like, what I love to explore consciousness. That topic to me never gets old, okay? Because to really understand how irreducible it is, and beginning to fathom that, because when we stop at books when it tells us about God versus going beyond belief and actually connecting to everything that we're a part of, do you guys see the intelligence just in nature? Like, we have yet to even figure that out with AI, like how all of these things work together. We're literally a part of it. So what I'm just going to say is maybe a light pill is that just as this is giving us the ability to realize that our collective energy is being siphoned to advance the crazy dark side of this, to advance the projects that are probably leaning more towards the dark side of this technology. I think that there is this sweet spot where enough people wake up and we would be able to leverage technology to, advance what it is that would completely change what it's like to be human. I think that we could change the human experience. We're the ones on that nexus between paradigm shifts. And I am more hopeful than not, because I think the amount of people who are caving and collapse, like, they don't realize that they're part of the system feeding it yet. But whenever they're catalyzed into their awakening, and you know what, Ashton, I got to give you kudos because you skipped the red pill. You went straight into the deep dark, like in the span of a year and a half, 2 years. It's like, holy shit. But I just imagine how others would be. It's very advanced now, fast paced, and I think a lot of other people will be catching on, unlike the way we did it, where it was much more slow. Well, for me anyway. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I do think that God is real, and I don't think that can ever be replicated. And I do think that there's an opportunity that presents for all of humanity, which is to actually strengthen our human connection. That's the challenge, right? There's really no other challenge. Once that's done, I don't think it's breakable.
Yeah, and thank you guys once again. I do want to just also echo what Dustin said there, which is that you use AI as a tool. It's an extremely powerful tool, but don't let it dull your senses. If you don't understand what the AI is feeding you, then you can't possibly tell if it's lying to you or not. But if you use it in the right ways, it can be incredibly powerful. So
Yo,
thank you guys.
Ashton, last question, and this is just a closing out question. So what would you do to preserve the human race?
Probably get us free energy and warp drive so we can just get the hell away from one another as fast as possible. That'd be my advice.
I'm with that. All right, brother. Well,
That's
yo, I
great.
hope you have a blessed night. God bless everybody here. Make sure you guys tune in next Wednesday to Preservation of the Human Race. Thank Ashton. Give him a follow if you don't already. And Maze and Dustin as well. Catch you guys.
And Augustus, follow Augustus, please.
Oh, thanks, Maze. Yeah, thanks, guys. All right, catch you on the flip flop. Peace out.